I think this will be the last program of Chapter 6, Talismanic Magic. So when anyone moves any part of the world, other parts are moved by the perceiving of that motion. The knowledge, therefore, of the dependency of things following one the other is the foundation of all wonderful operations, which is necessarily required to the exercising the power of attracting superior virtues. Now the words of men are certain natural things, and because the parts of the world mutually draw one the other, therefore an adept, invocating by words, works by powers fitted to nature, by leading some by love of the one to the other, or drawing others by reason of the one following after the other, or by repelling by reason of the enmity of one to the other, from the contrariety and difference of things, a multitude of virtues, which although they are contrary and different, yet perfect one part. Sometimes also he compels things by way of authority, by the celestial virtue, because he is not a stranger to the heavens. A man, therefore, if he receives the impression of a legation or fascination, doth not receive it according to the rational soul, but sensual. And if he suffers in any part, he suffers according to the animal part. For they cannot draw a knowing, an intelligent man by reason, but by receiving that impression and force by sense, inasmuch as the animal spirit of man is, by the influence of the celestials and co-operation of the things of the world, affected beyond his former and natural disposition. As the son moves the father to labor, although unwilling to keep and maintain him, although he be wearied, and the desire to rule is moved by anger and other labors to get the dominion, and the indigency of nature and fear of poverty moves a man to desire riches, and the ornaments and beauty of women. It is an incitement to concupiscence, and the harmony of a wise musician moves his hearers with various passions, whereof some do voluntarily follow the constancy of art, others conform themselves by gesture, although unwilling, because their sense is captivated, their reason not being intent to these things. Hence they fall into errors, who think those things to be above nature or contrary to nature, which are indeed by nature, and according to nature. We must know, therefore, that every superior moves its next inferior in its degree and order, not only in bodies, but also in spirits, so that the universal soul moves a particular soul. The rational acts upon the sensual, and that upon vegetable, and every part of the world acts upon another, and every part is apt to be moved by another, and every part of this inferior world suffers from the heavens, according to their nature and aptitude, as one part of the animal body suffers for another. And the superior intellectual world moves all things below itself, and after a manner contains all the same beings, from the first to the last, which are in the inferior world. Celestial bodies, therefore, move the bodies of the elementary world, compounded, generable, sensible, from the circumference to the center, by superior, perpetual, and spiritual essences, depending on the primary intellect, which is the acting intellect, but upon the virtue put in by the word of God, which word the wise Hindu adepts call the cause of causes, because from it are produced all beings. The acting intellect, which is the second, from it depends, and that by reason of the union of the Word with the first author, from whom all things being are truly produced. The Word, therefore, is the image of God. Figure of speech, of course, really. The acting intellect, the image of the Word. The soul is the image of this intellect, and our Word is the image of the soul, by which it acts upon natural things, naturally because nature is the work thereof. And every one of those perfects his subsequent, as a father his son, and none of the latter exist without the former, for they are depending among themselves by a kind of ordinate dependency, so that when the latter is corrupted, it is returned into that which was next before it, until it comes to the heavens, then to the universal soul, and lastly into the acting intellect, by which all other creatures exist, and itself exists in the principal author, which is the creating word of God, to which at length all things are returned. Our soul, therefore, if it will work any wonderful thing in these inferiors, must have respect to their beginning, that it may be strengthened and illustrated by that, and receive power of acting through each degree from the very first author. Therefore, we must be more diligent in contemplating the souls of the stars, than their bodies, and the supercelestial and the intellectual world, than the celestial, corporeal, because there is more noble, although also this be excellent. And the way to that, and without which medium the influence of the superior cannot be attained to. As for example, the sun is the king of the stars, most full of light, but it receives it from the intelligible world, above all other stars, because the soul thereof is more capable of intellectual splendor. Intelligible splendor? Well, yeah, because it's the nearest, but... Wherefore, he that desires to attract the influence of the sun must contemplate upon the sun, not only by the speculation of the exterior light, but also of the interior. And no man can do this unless he return to the soul of the sun, and come like to it, and comprehend the intelligible light thereof with an intellectual sight, as the sensible light with a corporeal eye. For this man should be filled with the light thereof, and the light whereof, which is an undertype impressed by the supernal orb, it receives unto itself with the illustration whereof his intellect being endowed, and truly like to it, and being assisted by it, shall at length attain to that supreme brightness, and to all forms that partake thereof. And when he hath received the light of the supreme degree, then his soul shall come to perfection, and be made like the spirits of the sun, and shall attain to the virtues and illustrations of the supernatural virtue, and shall enjoy the power of them, if he has obtained faith in the first author. In the first place, therefore, we must implore assistance from the first author, and praying not only with mouth, but a religious gesture and supplicant soul also, abundantly, incessantly, and sincerely, that he would enlighten our mind and remove darkness growing upon our souls by reason of our bodies. I guess the last section is called the Key to Talismanic Magic, and I don't know why it doesn't have the square, although the 9x9 squares more difficult to make, but you have the same. This is ended by those figures of the moon thing, right? I will now show thee the observations of celestial bodies which are required for the practice of these things, which are briefly as follows: to make anyone fortunate, make an image at that time in which the significator of life, the giver of life, the hylic, the signs and planets are fortunate. Let the ascendant and midheaven and the lords thereof be fortunate, and also the place of the sun and the moon, part of fortune, and lord of conjunction or prevention, make before their nativity by depressing the malignant planets, i.e., by taking the times when they are depressed. But, the planets aren't like that, but perhaps the associations people form, right? And other cultures, and perhaps even within the same culture group, but we don't, we have one book of astrology or whatever, and that we think, whatever, But if you would make an image to procure misery, you must do contrary to this. And those which you placed fortunate, you must now make unfortunate, by taking the malignant stars when they rule, and the same means you must take to make any place, region, city, or house unfortunate. But if you would make anyone unfortunate who hath injured you, let there be an image made under the ascension of that man whom thou wouldest make unfortunate, and thou shalt take, when unfortunate, the lord of the house of his life, the lord of the ascendant, and the moon, the lord of the house of the moon, the lord of the house of the Lord ascending, and the 10th house, and the lord thereof. Now for the building success, our fitting of any place fortunes in the ascendant thereof, and in the 1st and 10th, the 2nd and 8th houses. Thou shalt make the lord of the ascendant, and the lord of the house of the moon fortunate, but to chase away certain animals from any place that are noxious to thee, that they may not generate or abide there, make an image under the ascension of that animal, which thou wouldest chase away or destroy, and after the likeness thereof. For instance, now suppose thou wouldest wish to chase away scorpions from any place. Let an image of a scorpion be made, the sign of Scorpio ascending with the moon, and thou shalt make unfortunate the ascendant, and the lord thereof, and the lord of the house of Mars, and thou shalt make unfortunate the lord of the ascendant in the 8th square. Write upon the image the name of the ascendant, and of the lord thereof, and the moon, the lord of the day and hour, and let there be a pit made in the middle of the place from which thou wouldest drive them, and put into it some earth taken out of the 4 corners of the same place. Then bury the image there, with the head downward, saying, This is the burying of the scorpions, that they may be forced to leave, and come no more into this place. And so do by the rest. Now for gain, make an image under the ascendant of that man, to whom thou wouldest appoint the gain, and thou shalt make the lord of the 2nd house, which is the house of substance, to be joined with the lord of the ascendant, in a trine or sextile aspect. And let there be a reception amongst them. Thou shalt make fortunate the 11th, and the lord thereof, the 8th, and if thou canst, put part of fortune in the ascendant or 2nd, and let the image be buried in that place, or from that place, to which thou wouldst appoint the gain or fortune. Likewise for agreement or love, let be made an image in the day of Jupiter under the ascendant of the nativity of him whom you would wish to be beloved. Make fortunate the ascendant and the 10th, and hide the evil from the ascendant, and you must have the lords of the 10th and planets of the 11th fortunate, joined in the Lord of the Ascendant from the trine or sextile, with reception. Then proceed to make another image for him, whom thou wouldst stir up to love, whether it be a friend, or female, or brother, or relation, or companion of him, whom thou would have favored or beloved. And so make an image under the ascension of the 11th house, from the ascendant of the first image. But if the party be a wife or a husband, let it be made under the ascension of the 7th. If a brother, sister, or cousin, under the ascension of the 3rd house. If a mother, of a 10th, and so on. Now let the significator of the ascendant of the 2nd image be joined to the significator of the ascendant of the 1st, and let there be between them a reception, and let the rest be fortunate. As in the 1st image, afterwards join both the images together in a mutual embrace, or put the face of the 2nd to the back of the 1st, and let them be wrapped up in silk, and cast away, or spoiled. Also for the success of petitions, and obtaining of a thing denied or taken, or possessed by another, make an image under the ascendant of him who petitions for a thing, and cause the Lord of the 2nd house to be joined with the Lord of the ascendant, from a trine or sextile aspect, and let there be a reception betwixt them. And if it can be so, let the Lord of the 2nd be in obeying signs, and the Lord of the ascendant in the ruling. Make fortunate the ascendant and the Lord thereof, and beware that the Lord of the ascendant be not retrograde or combust, or cadent, or in the house opposition, i.e., in the 7th, from his own house. Let him not be hindered by the malignant planets, but let him be strong and in an angle. Thou shalt make fortunate the ascendant, and the Lord of the 2nd and the moon. Make another image for him that has petitioned to, and begin it under the ascendant belonging to him, as if he is a king or a prince, and so on. Begin it under the ascendant of the 10th house, from the ascendant of the 1st image. If a father, under the 4th. If a son, under the 5th, and so of the like, and put the significator of the 2nd image from a trine or sextile, and let him receive it, and put them both, strong and fortunate, without any hindrance. Make all evil fall from them. Thou shalt make fortunate the 10th and the 4th, if thou canst, or any of them. And when the 2nd image shall be perfect, join it with the 1st, face to face, and wrap them in clean linen, and bury them in the middle of his house, who is the petitioner, under a fortunate significator, the fortune being strong. And let the face of the 1st image be towards the north, or towards that place where the thing petitioned for doth remain. Or if it happens that the petitioner goes forward to obtain the thing desired or petitioned for, let him carry the said images with him. Thus I have given in examples the key of all talismanical operations, whatsoever by which wonderful effects may be wrought either by images, by rings, by glasses, by seals, by tables, or any other magical instruments whatsoever. But if these have their chief grounds in the knowledge of the effects of the planets and the rising of the constellations, I recommend an earnest attention to that part of astrology which teaches the power, influences, and effects of the celestial bodies amongst themselves generally. Likewise, I would recommend the disciple to be expert in the aspect, motions, and declinations, risings, and so on of the 7 planets, and perfectly to understand their natures, either mixed or simple, also to be ready to correct in the erecting of a figure at any time, to show the true position of the heavens, there being so great a sympathy between the celestials and ourselves, and to observe all the other rules which we have plentifully recited. And without doubt the industrious student shall receive the satisfaction of bringing his operations and experiments to effect that which he ardently desires. With which, wishing all success, the contemplator of the creature and the creator, I will here close up this part of my work and the conclusion of my chapter on talismanic magic. And remember that unless you're following like the shortest route over the earth or something like this, the direction of the north was well known as the abode of the devil in some of those Asian countries, and by Asian I mean, you get into Persia, you're technically into Asia. And, among the Hindus, too, they thought the north was, the direction of the devil. The Norse also spoke of the devil as in the north. Some speak of the devil as in, the South Pacific, but generally the north is the direction.